Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth, Hispanic Heritage Month Edition. My name is Luis Rosa, and I'm your host. Hispanic Heritage Month takes place from September 15th to October 15th every year as a time to recognize and celebrate the many contributions, culture, and extensive histories of the American Latino community. It first began as Hispanic Heritage Week in 1968 and later on became Hispanic Heritage Month in 1988. Since then, the month has been celebrated nationwide through festivals, art shows, conferences, community gatherings, and much more. The reason it starts on September 15th is because it celebrates the independence days of several Latin American countries, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua on September 15th, Mexico on September 16th, and Chile on September 18th. It also includes holidays that recognize Hispanic contributions, such as Virgin Islands Puerto Rico Friendship Day, which is celebrated in the U.S. Virgin Islands the second Monday in October. For this month, I'd like to highlight individuals who have made a great contribution in their chosen profession and the community at large. So now I'd like to introduce you today to our very special guest, Carlosluis Perez. Carlos is a first-generation college graduate. He was born in Washington Heights, grew up in the Dominican Republic, and returned to New York at the age of 15. He is passionate about college access and has spent the last 10 years helping students gain admissions to some of the top colleges and universities in the country. Carlos started off his college education at the Borough of Manhattan Community College, where he earned an associate's in business administration. He then transferred to the City College of New York, where he earned a bachelor's degree in psychology while working part-time as a college counselor for recent immigrants. After completing his undergraduate education, Carlos joined the New York University College Advising Corps as he worked on his Master's of Social Work at NYU. During the years that followed, Carlos worked his way up to becoming a director of college counseling at a high school in the South Bronx. Carlos transitioned to KIPP NYC College Prep 3 years ago, where he works as a college counselor. In addition, Carlos is currently pursuing an EDD in Higher Education Administration and Student Affairs at New York University. When he is not advocating for his students, Carlos is traveling the world, exploring New York City, or trying new restaurants. And now, without further ado, Carlosluis Perez. Welcome, Carlosluis.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Luis. Really honored to be here. Thank you so much for all of those words. I really, really appreciate the invitation and adding to the conversation about Hispanic heritage in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the honor is all mine. I'm so glad that you were able to make some time because I know you're back in school and your time is super limited. So thank you very much. So let me ask you about, can you tell us a little bit about your background in general and your upbringing?
Yes. So my background, I come from Dominican parents who grew up in the Dominican Republic, came in when they were young, started working here and didn't get a chance to go to school. So I am a first generation college graduate in my family and one of the very few who actually graduated college. I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I was born in Washington Heights, but unfortunately my mother had to send me and my brothers to the Dominican Republic to basically be raised by my grandparents while she worked here and here in New York and supported us financially. That was a really big influence for me because I went to a all-boys Catholic school as I was growing up, and they instilled a lot of great values that I took away that I took away with me. And I came to New York when I was in high school, had to learn English and get used to the new educational system, had to get used to the new culture. There was a lot of pressure, at that age. And so I went through a lot of transition. And along the way, I found the support of a mentor who has been the most influential person in my life. And till today, I feel like I owe her everything that I am, because she did not only prepare me for the college application process, but also offered me my first job opportunity at NYU when I was straight out of high school.
Wow, that's amazing. And I want to go back there a little bit. You mentioned you went to an all-boys Catholic school. Was that in Dominican Republic?
Correct. That was in the Dominican Republic, and I went to that same small all boys Catholic school from when I started school at the age of 5 up until I was in my second year of high school, which is when I came to the United States.
Gotcha. Was that Sagrado Corazón de Jesús by any chance?
That was El Sagrado Corazón de Jesús
Get
in Villa
out.
Juana.
That is amazing. Well, for those of you listening, I'm also from the Dominican Republic, also from the same neighborhood in Villa Juana, which is amazing how we just never met. But I just learned here as we're recording this episode that we went to the same school. That's insane. What years did you go?
Wow. I went from 1996 up until 2005, which is when I moved from the Dominican Republic permanently to the United States.
Wow, that's amazing. I went from kindergarten. I was born in 79, so I probably went from like 84, 83 until it was time to come to the US in 1991. So we had a pretty similar trajectory, same neighborhood, same school. That's unbelievable. So when you said the word transition, I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. So, you were fortunate enough to be born in the US, but you still had to go through the same thing of learning Spanish and just leaving friends behind and all that, right?
Yes, yes. Starting off from scratch. Starting off from scratch was really hard. And I actually appreciate having, like growing up in another place that was not New York, because I also feel like that really shaped where I went to college after I graduated high school here. So,
Gotcha. Wow, that's unbelievable. I'm so excited about this. So tell me a little bit about how your Hispanic heritage has shaped your career, in your opinion.
so my Hispanic heritage, I feel like called me into my career, pushed me into my career. When I graduated high school, I started working as a college counselor, supporting students who had recently arrived from other countries. I went to a high school that had a very large population of recent immigrants from all over the world. And my mentor, who was my college counselor in high school, saw the potential in me being able to help, to be able to help those students who were, me a few years before that. And so she gave me the opportunity and I took it, and I wanted to be a doctor, or I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And that's what I went to school for. I majored in business during my first 2 years of college, and that's what my associates is on. And after working with that population, I decided that I wanted to do something along the lines with school counseling or psychology. And that's why I decided to switch careers or switch majors after I transferred on to my 4-year college. And that's when I started working on my psychology degree and had a concentration in Latin American and Latino studies, because I did want to focus on supporting, Latinx in my community who needed to have a role model, or who needed to find the help in someone who related to them. And so it shaped everything for me, really. And after that, I just wanted to continue to do that sort of work. And that's when I decided to pursue a degree in social work, where it allowed me to not only work with them on a policy level in terms of supporting them through paperwork that had to do with them migrating from other countries, but also in policies around financial aid, policies around higher education access, and trade programs and all of that. And so I focused a lot on the policy work that social work, gave me, the background that social work gave me, in addition to also having a very heavy training on mental health counseling. And so the combination of those was really impactful, and I feel like has contributed a lot to me having a bigger impact in my community. So
Yeah, that's a great combination. I feel like you're in a unique situation to be able to help the community. And, you mentioned the importance of your mentor. And I feel like that is a common thing that I see among people that are successful, how they just credit somebody or several people in their past. that were able to just extend that hand and show them the ropes, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about your mentor, how you met, and then how it all began?
Yes. So, Aileen, I hope you're listening to this. I'll definitely uh, put you on. And I met Aileen when I was in my guidance counselor's office. My guidance counselor, to put it into perspective, guidance counselors have a caseload of over 425 students across the country. That's just the average number of students that they have in their caseloads, which only allows them to spend about 20 minutes per student in the year. And for those of you who went through the college application process most recently, you know that it takes more than 20 minutes for you to put together a college application. And so my high school had outside resources through schools like NYU and Columbia who came in to support students with the college application process. And Aileen was one of those. Aileen was of Cuban descent, and she worked for NYU part-time, supporting students through the college application process. And that's how I met her. And she was the first person who actually had a conversation about college with me. She was the first one to take me to a college campus. I actually went on many college campuses. She taught me different lessons on SAT prep and how to prepare for college on Saturday morning. So I had a whole crew that I came with and that I invited to the Saturday programming. And I feel like she loved me because I was low-key popular in high school, and I was able to bring in more students every Saturday. And so it was more of like a fun trip for us that allowed us to leave our homes on a Saturday. And then we would just sit at a McDonald's by NYU after we were done for hours. And so that's something that we enjoyed and looked forward to without really understanding the impact that was having in our lives. And so eventually she sort of broke down the process for me, put me through, BMCC basically used to help me with the first round of assignments. I remember calling her, like, not understanding my first essay and why my professor expected me to write 5 pages when I was used to writing 5 paragraphs in high school. My high school definitely didn't prepare me for college, but she was there to support me when I needed it the most. And so I really appreciate that, and I do credit her for a lot of at least the initial, push that students need in the beginning. I feel like it is overwhelming, especially when nobody in your family can answer the questions that you have. Nobody in your family understands what it's like to go through, your first semester of college, to understand also the fact that I was still sort of like a recent immigrant. At the end of the day, I was still learning the language. That was 3 years after I had been here, and me writing a college level paper in English in the language that I wasn't comfortable with was really overwhelming for me. And she made it seem like it was nothing, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's amazing. It's really unbelievable the impact that somebody can have in your life, whether they realize it or not. Because it might be something that they're doing in the moment, like, "Hey, let me help you with this," and not realize just how life changing that can be. And I can completely relate to what you're saying because I went through a similar experience too, where you mentioned that not having anyone in the household that can help you. And I can relate to that. My parents didn't know English when I was going to college, and they had never seen a college application or a FAFSA. And like you said, I mean, the average caseload was 420 or so. I mean, yeah, I didn't get much time from my guidance counselor. And I think I visited maybe 2 colleges at most and just applied to maybe a handful. But there really wasn't much guidance. And I had to rely on outside help to write my first entrance essay, for example, with the application and all. So it's just amazing how what some people see as just like a basic given is such a struggle for others. So I appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to ask you if you can tell me, so like, how did you get to where you are today?
That's a loaded question. How did I get here? I feel like I haven't thought about my trajectory in a linear way. I simply follow my heart in terms of, is it time to move on yet? Am I ready to take on more responsibilities where I'm currently working? What is the logic behind that responsibility? Because my work has to always be meaningful to me for me to feel ownership of it, for me to feel motivated to do it. And so um, I feel like I have been able to move from one position to the next because of the type of experience that I am ready to take on. I get bored is easily. And so that's something that it's a trend in my life that after year 3 or year 4, I am ready to sort of like either be promoted or find a promotion elsewhere. And I got to a point that in my previous job as a director of college counseling, I used to oversee a department. So I had to manage budgets. I had to look into taxes, which is part of the financial aid application process. I had to apply for grants. I had to manage a whole program. And it gave me a gist of all of the components that make up a director of college counseling or a college counselor in general. And then find a place that gave me the ones that I actually enjoyed the most. And so I feel like I chose KIPP because KIPP allowed me to focus on a small caseload of students and focus just on the college application aspect of it. So I'll give you a little bit of perspective in terms of that. So before, I used to be responsible for the entire school community. And so I had to create curricula for students that were in grades 9th through 11th, but also support alumni who had already graduated from the high school, in addition to supporting students who were applying to to colleges, right? So at KIPP, I have the blessing of working in a department that just college access has about 36 people working. It's like to support our students. And so we have career counselors who support our students from grade 9th through 11th. And then 11th grade, we have support systems for our students to get ready for um, SATs and other college level, exams, right? Testings that colleges look into when evaluating students for the process. Then they're given to the college counselors. The students move on to the college counselors after they've been with their career counselors for 3 years, exploring careers, taking internship opportunities, whether after school or during the summer, applying to pre-college programs during the summer or after school. So they come to us with a basic level of understanding in terms of like where they want to take, the next step in their lives. And so when I work with the students, it's my job is to help them find a place that they call home for the next 4 years, whether that's in the city, whether that's away, or that's a trade program. I'm here to support students through a post-secondary plan, not just to send them off to college, because college is not for everyone. I believe that college is an opportunity, it's an option that many people can look into, but it's not the way for everyone. And so at KIPP, that's my focus. My sole focus is to support kids through that post-secondary plan from beginning to end. And in June, they move on to our success advisors, who support students in college for the first 2 years, because research shows that if students are able to make it through the first 2 years of college, then they will most likely graduate. And after those 2 years, then our students get paired up with a career counselor at a college level who is able to sort of like help them understand where they're headed after graduating college and what they need to do to prepare for that. So again, I love the entire college application process, but the part that I like to do the most is just the counseling aspect of the post-secondary readiness plan, and KIPP allows me to do that. And I found it to be a great place to work at. They value their employees, and I feel really appreciated. And so that's also really valuable for me. And that's how I've sort of gotten here in terms of what I do with KIPP. Outside of KIPP, I choose to support a handful of students whose families are unable to afford a private consultant for higher education and college access, and I help them with the college application process and sort of like support each step of the process at a lower cost than a private consultant would do. And just to put it into perspective, on average, private college counselor would cost about $200 per session, and it depends on the amount of information that they give to the people who hire them. And so my rate is purposely to support students who wouldn't be able to afford that, families who wouldn't be able to afford that.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I love the way you describe that program. It seems like there's such a warm handoff, like a transition from each different stage. And that's amazing support right there. So I could clearly see the benefits to the students and the parents as well of those students that are involved. So thank you for being so thorough in your explanation of that. I know that somehow the people, like the community, can also be involved with KIPP. Can you tell just a little bit about some of the ways that people in the community work with the organization and how they can get involved?
Yeah, so there are many ways that people can get involved with KIPP. We have a fellowship program for students who are getting their master's that KIPP supports them with. But in addition to that, during the pandemic, KIPP has done a fantastic job at providing meals for families. And so they are able to give out over 100 meals per day. And if anyone wants to get involved, I'll give you the information so you can put it in the description of the podcast. And, they can reach out. We always need volunteers to deliver food or simply to be at the site, at one of the sites that we have, so that when families come to pick up the food, we have people who actually hand them to the people, or to simply help us putting together the boxes or the bags of food that people come to pick up.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. For those of you listening, you can go to onmywaytowealth.com and just find the episode, and we'll have the contact information for KIPP and Carlosluis as well, all in the show notes. Yeah, thank you for that. So tell me a little bit, going back to your upbringing, what were some of the resources that you wish you had growing up that could have helped you on your way?
I would say that I would have appreciated having gone to, excuse me, I live right by a hospital. So
New York City, I miss it.
New York City.
Can't go to sleep without hearing sirens.
Every 2 minutes. But some of the resources I wish I had growing up was access to a better education system. I feel like I struggled a lot throughout my academic experience because I didn't have the best teachers sometimes, especially when I came to New York. I feel like I had teachers who were teaching me to a test rather than to teach me content that I could use and apply in real life settings. It's just a way that the New York City education system has sort of like shaped many teachers into thinking. And so I feel like that's something that I wish I had. Like, I wish I had access to higher level courses when I was in high school. I wish that I had access to private tutors. I wish that I had access to career counselors who would teach me about different career options. And there are many other things that I could think of that I would have loved to have more access to. And even sports. I feel like sports are very limited, even though I went to a big sport in high school. But they were limited to whatever the popular sports were. And back then, the high schools were not even divided into smaller high schools, which is something that changed with the Bloomberg administration in 2009, 2010, where all of the large high schools went from being 4,000 students to only about 500 students per high school. So that's, New York City has some interesting layout when it comes to high schools.
Yeah, I saw that change after I graduated. I went to George Washington High School in Washington Heights. Don't tell me that that's where you went too.
No,
I was
but
about to
I was
say.
born right across the street.
Okay.
I went to Louis D. Brandeis High School, which is not too far from
84th,
George
right?
Washington. 84th and
I
Columbus,
remember
yes.
Brandeis. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Pretty cool. Now, do you feel like there's still something lacking today that's unavailable for Latinos as they work toward achieving their goals?
Yes, there are many, starting with lack of representation. We are not in many fields when it comes to advanced degrees. We do add a lot of value to the economy of the United States, but when it comes to access to higher education, we are not doing well. And Black and Latinx are the lowest numbers when it comes to educational achievements, but also um, income inequality. There's a lot of disparities when it comes to numbers as it relates to our upward mobility, and so those are things that I cannot stop looking at, and that's why I actually decided to pursue um, an an EDD in higher education, because I want to be able to research and contribute to education when it comes to more research about how people of color are affected by the lack of access when it comes to higher education, and how that's not even a discussion when it comes to education in general. Like college counselors, the college counseling role is an outside organization sort of conversation. It's never a position that's there the way that we have teachers dedicated for special education, or the way that we have social workers dedicated to mental health counseling. There's not a role, there's a budget line in the system that is given to by the Department of Education to support college access and like post-secondary readiness. And so here we are, um, having students who are failing, who graduate from elementary school with a very low reading level and writing level, move on to middle school, still graduate with the same, gaps in education, and then move on to high school and do poorly in high school, but are still able to make it. And then college is where, they sort of like have to pick up those gaps. If not, they drop out, and the numbers show it. And achievement rates for people of color is below 40%. So for every 100 of us, less than 40 students actually make it. And so it's really sad to see the numbers. And as we move up in terms of degrees, types of degrees like masters and PhDs, our numbers are, go from double digits to single digits. There's only about 4% of Latinx in the United States who have PhDs or, you know, doctoral degree. And that's really sad to see.
Yeah, and I think that resonates throughout many industries. In my industry, financial planning is the same too. Like the number of people that have the certified financial planner designation is so small. I think Black and Latinx combined make up, I think the last one I saw was like 3.7% combined of the whole industry, which is just minimal, right? So when it comes to providing financial planning for the population, it's like it's hard to find somebody that you can identify with, that has gone through the same struggles like you have and can relate. So it's just, yeah, it's incredible. So we have a lot of work to do for sure. So if you had
Yes, and
one superpower, go ahead, tell me.
that's one of the reasons I appreciate your podcast, because I've never heard, any podcast around financial literacy to the extent in which you do it, coming from a person of color, or, coming from someone who sounded like me. And so I was never able to relate to none of what was out there. And so I really appreciate you doing this, because I feel like it actually helped me a lot. And
Oh,
so,
cool. Thank you.
thank you for the work that you do.
I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's one of the things I've always thought about. Is like, as one person, I could only help so many people on a one-on-one level. So when I came up with the concept for this podcast, I was like, I can reach a much larger audience. Maybe I won't get to work with them one-on-one, but they might hear something in one of the episodes. I might help them along the way. So yeah, I appreciate you definitely tuning in and giving me that feedback. So if you had one superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. I would love to be multiple people at the same time. Like I want to split myself into like 10 people so that I can live my best life, as they say now, and be able to enjoy, like, have a more of a work-life balance. And I feel like work-life balance is something that a lot of people talk a lot about, but sometimes work is part of the life balance. Like sometimes work takes over a lot of someone's identity because they have invested so much time into it, which is my case. I invest so much time in my personal and professional growth that sort of like unconsciously it takes up to, I would say, 70% of my time. And so I have not enough time to enjoy the perks, or simply to sit down and reflect, which is something that I have been more mindful of lately, especially as the pandemic has changed the way many of us see things in the world. So yeah, I would like to be multiple people, be in different places at the same time, for sure.
Yeah, that would be nice. And you bring up a great point. I feel like a lot of the time when you ask somebody, like, tell me about yourself, usually they start off by telling you what they do for a living. And somehow, right, like that becomes part of their identity, if not, the large chunk of it, right? So true.
Yeah, and it also comes from a lot of it when you're talking to a person of color, to a Latinx person. It's like sort of like an internalized, um, I want to say, like, imposter syndrome to some extent, because we invest so much in our career, sort of like to prove that we deserve to be where we are. And so talking about being a Latinx first generation student, and now talking about the struggles of being a Latinx first generation professional, it's really hard. Like my family does not understand that my job requires me to stay on after work hours. Like, yes, I work a 9 to 5 in person, but the responsibilities go beyond 9 to 5. And that's something that a lot of young professionals struggle with. There are a lot of resources out there to support people up to the point when they graduate from college, but there are very little resources when it comes to supporting people who have recently graduated, who don't know what to do with their lives because they just came out of an education system that took 16 years of preparation, and now they have to pay rent, and they might not make enough, and now they have to, like, you know contribute to society through their fields, and it's a lot of pressure. So I always enjoy having those conversations as well, because it's something that I definitely struggled with at least the first 3 to 4 years after I graduated college, and I still struggle with it sometimes.
Yeah, that's quite the transition to make, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So tell me, what is one common misconception that you believe people have about Latinx or Hispanics or the Hispanic culture?
Wow, that's a deep question. I feel like it it shows a lot in politics, and that goes without saying that Latinx are seen as, most of us are seen as Mexican, when Mexicans might be the largest population of Latinx in the United States, but definitely not even 50% of the Latinx community in the United States. That there are no contributions made by Latinx people, that we come in to take away people's jobs, that our women come to give birth and take advantage of the system. And so that all of us are undocumented. That's, a lot of that has come up through the actual political climate, in addition to also sort of like always undermining the fact that we speak two languages, we can serve two different cultures, three different cultures at the same time. Um, come in with a different perspective, having, coming from another country that works differently than this country. And so those are some of the misconceptions that come to mind right away. And I just hate when people generalize, also, because even though we might be Latinos, we have very different traditions. So, like, Cubans are very different than Dominicans, even though we're right next to each other. We're very different than Argentinians, who are also Latinx, who look very different than most of the Caribbean Latinx people. And so just overgeneralization is never good in my eyes, at least.
No, agreed. That is so true. So what do you love about being Hispanic?
I love the flavor. We have a little something that I feel like really helps us stand out. Like, I love our food. I love, our traditions. I love the music. I love having a place to call home other than the United States. I really do. Like, for me, I take pride in saying that I am from the Dominican Republic, where people go to escape from the United States. So I grew up in a paradise, and so that's something that I have to take a lot of pride in. And I those are just a few of the things that I love about it. Also, speaking two languages like fluently is something that is like one of the heritages that I have from being Hispanic that I enjoy the most. Because you live in two different worlds at the same time, simultaneously. So.
That's true. I love how you focus on the positive, because I'm sure you could have shared many struggles from the Dominican Republic, but you choose to say, I grew up in a paradise. I love
I
it.
did. I
I love
mean,
it.
Villajuana is not the most appealing place, but when I go back, I actually enjoyed having, like, I take obstacles as a way of growth. And so my perspective on things is always, taking things from a experiential and learning experience where I am able to grow and become a better version of myself because of the negative things or the challenging things that happened in my life. And I feel like that's one of the reasons I have been able to be here, to get to where I am today.
Yeah. So you must be very grateful. Tell me one thing that you're grateful for today.
I am grateful for um I am grateful for my health. I feel like because of work, because of my, focus on growth and all of that, I always take my health for granted. And I feel like with the pandemic, I am more aware of the need to exercise, of the need to eat healthy, of the need to of the need to continuously feed my body positive things for the physical and mental, rather than just like the academic side of things or like the professional side of things. At the end of the day, I am a human, and I am a human first before I am all of that. And part of that has a lot to do with my physical and emotional health that often, gets forgotten.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it's not just about eating healthy. There's so many other different levels of health, emotional and mental, and like you mentioned, having that work-life balance, etc. Without a doubt. So you were talking about food earlier. It's one of the things that you love about being Hispanic. So I'm going to have to ask you, what is your favorite dish or Latin cuisine?
No, Luis, no.
Decisions,
Wow.
huh?
Do I have to choose? I mean, I love Mexican food. I also love the Dominican flag, which is arroz, habichuela y carne, rice, beans, and chicken. And like I love my food. I don't know. I can't choose. That's a really hard question. Um, so yeah, I'll just leave it there. Like I said, two of my favorites. If I can have two favorites.
Gotcha. No, I know it's definitely a tough one. But and that's one of the things I love too about being Hispanic, is you have like so much exposure to so many different cultures within the Latinx community, right? You can have Venezuelan food and Cuban food, Dominican, but I mean, it's amazing, right? So definitely hard to choose without a doubt. So let's say that you were stuck in an elevator for 30 seconds with a young Carlos Luis. And what is your best piece of advice that you would have for that young person going after the dream today?
Trust the struggle. I feel like I was able to trust every challenge in my growth process, and I still do. And I would tell a younger version of myself, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You are working towards a goal that is going to pay off at the end of the day. Follow your dreams. People are going to have opinions. People are going to always have expectations of you. But at the end of the day what makes you happy. At the end of the day what is for you. And if you believe that you can do it, then work for it, because eventually it will pay off. And setbacks are normal, and setbacks sometimes bring us back to the drawing board so that we can, move on to an even better technique or an even better plan. And so I think I would say that. I know it sounds kind of tacky, but trust the struggle.
Words of wisdom right there. Appreciate it. Well, thank you very much, Carlos. I appreciate it. It was an honor having you on the show. So again, for those of you listening, you can go to onmywaytowealth.com. I will have Carlos Luis contact information there for his LinkedIn profile, and as well as KIPP NYC. Thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, always feel free to send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. If you are interested in a financial planning consultation, you can go to my business website at buildabetterfinancialfuture.com. Click on the Start Here button. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.